Want to know if you're surrounded by people who just don't get it? Today we're diving deep into the 6 unmistakable signs of a stupid person. And trust me, this isn't your regular surface-level content. We're mixing ancient Stoic wisdom with modern-day reality to help you identify and deal with foolishness wherever you find it. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Marcus Aurelius said, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." Let's get straight into it. Sign number 1. They never question their own beliefs. The first and most glaring sign of a stupid person is their complete inability to question their own beliefs. In the world of Stoicism, self-reflection isn't just recommended, it's absolutely essential. These people have built their entire worldview on a foundation of assumptions they've never bothered to examine. Think about how many times you've met someone who's absolutely convinced they're right about everything. They'll defend their positions to the death, even when presented with clear evidence to the contrary. This isn't just stubbornness, it's intellectualness of the highest order. The Stoics taught us that wisdom begins with acknowledging our own ignorance, but these people, they're so certain of their knowledge that they've created an impenetrable fortress of ignorance around themselves. Every day, they reinforce these walls with confirmation bias and selective perception. What makes this particularly dangerous is how it spreads. These individuals don't just hold on to their unexamined beliefs, they actively push them onto others. They become walking megaphones of misinformation, proudly broadcasting their ignorance to anyone within earshot. In the digital age, this problem has become exponentially worse. Social media algorithms feed these people exactly what they want to hear, creating echo chambers that reinforce their existing beliefs. They're essentially living in a self-created bubble of intellectual stagnation. The real tragedy is that they've completely abandoned the Stoic principle of rational inquiry. Instead of asking, "Why do I believe this?" they simply declare, "This is what I believe." End of story. No questions asked, no examination needed. These people have confused confidence with correctness. They mistake their unwavering certainty for actual knowledge, completely missing the point that true wisdom often comes with a healthy dose of doubt. They're the ones who'll argue about topics they know nothing about, armed with nothing but outdated information and half-remembered facts they picked up from equally uninformed sources. Their certainty becomes their prison. What's even more frustrating is their complete resistance to learning. When presented with new information, they don't see it as an opportunity for growth. They see it as a threat to their existing beliefs that must be rejected at all costs. In their minds, changing their opinion is a sign of weakness rather than strength. They've completely missed the Stoic teaching that the ability to change one's mind in light of new evidence is actually a mark of wisdom. This rigid thinking makes them particularly vulnerable to manipulation. Since they never question their sources or examine their beliefs, they become perfect targets for those who would exploit their certainty for their own ends. The ultimate irony is that while they think they're showing strength by never wavering in their beliefs, they're actually displaying one of the greatest weaknesses a person can have, the inability to grow and adapt their thinking as they encounter new information. Sign number 2. They can't control their emotional reactions. Moving on to the second sign. These people are completely at the mercy of their emotions. While the Stoics taught us to acknowledge our emotions but not be ruled by them, these individuals let their feelings drive every single decision they make. Watch how they react to the smallest inconvenience. It's like watching a volcano erupt over a minor tremor. Their emotional responses are completely disproportionate to the actual situations they face, making mountains out of molehills at every opportunity. In the workplace, these are the people who throw tantrums during meetings when things don't go their way. In traffic, they're the ones honking and screaming over the slightest delay. Their emotional regulation is practically non-existent. The Stoics understood that we can't control external events, but we can control our responses to them. These people haven't just missed this memo. They've torn it up, set it on fire, and scattered the ashes to the wind. Their lack of emotional control doesn't just affect them, it creates a ripple effect that impacts everyone around them. They're like emotional terrorists, holding entire rooms hostage with their unpredictable reactions. What's particularly fascinating is how they'll justify their emotional outbursts after the fact. Instead of taking responsibility for their reactions, they'll blame everything and everyone else for making them feel that way. These are the people who have never developed the crucial skill of putting space between stimulus and response. Every trigger gets an immediate, unfiltered reaction, as if they're permanently stuck in fight or flight mode. The internet has become their perfect playground for emotional dysfunction. Behind the safety of their screens, they feel free to unleash their unprocessed emotions on anyone and everyone, without any consideration for consequences. Their emotional instability makes them incredibly easy to manipulate. Anyone who knows which buttons to push can send them into a tailspin of reactive behavior, making them perfect pawns in other people's games. The saddest part is that they often pride themselves on being real or authentic, confusing emotional dysfunction with genuine self-expression. They've convinced themselves that controlling their emotions means suppressing their true self. Their relationships inevitably suffer because no one wants to constantly walk on eggshells around an emotional time bomb. Yet they'll blame others for abandoning them rather than examining their own behavior. The irony is that while they think they're being true to themselves by letting their emotions run wild, they're actually surrendering their autonomy to every passing feeling and external circumstance. Sign number 3. They blame everyone but themselves. The third sign is perhaps the most common. These people have elevated the art of blame, shifting to an Olympic sport. They're gold medalists in finding ways to make everything someone else's fault. In their world, personal responsibility is a foreign concept. Bad grades? It's the teacher's fault. Missed promotion? The boss is playing favorites. Failed relationship? Their ex must be crazy. There's always a convenient external factor to blame. The Stoics emphasize the importance of focusing on what's within our control, but these individuals do exactly the opposite. They expend enormous energy complaining about circumstances while taking zero responsibility for their own action. Watch how they handle failure. It's never because they didn't prepare enough, work hard enough, or make the right choices. It's always because the system is rigged, someone else cheated, or the universe conspired against them. This victim mentality becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because they never take responsibility for their actions, they never learn from their mistakes. The same patterns keep repeating, but they're too busy pointing fingers to notice. Their narrative is always the same. They're the helpless victim of circumstance, forever at the mercy of external forces beyond their control. This worldview is completely antithetical to Stoic philosophy, which emphasizes personal agency and responsibility. What's particularly destructive about this mindset is how it prevents any kind of personal growth. After all, if nothing is ever your fault, what motivation do you have to change or improve? These people often surround themselves with others who share the same victim mentality, creating echo chambers of blame where everyone reinforces each other's excuses and justifications. They've completely misunderstood the concept of cause and effect. In their minds, their actions exist in a vacuum, disconnected from consequences. When things go wrong, it must be because of some external factor. The real danger is how this mentality spreads to every area of their lives. Career stagnant? It's the economy. Health problems? It's their genetics. Relationship issues? It's society's fault. There's never any internal reflection. This constant blame shifting creates a peculiar kind of learned helplessness. They become convinced that they have no power to change their circumstances, which becomes another convenient excuse for inaction. The ultimate irony is that by refusing to take responsibility for anything, they give up the very power they need to improve their lives. They become spectators in their own story, watching from the sidelines as life happens to them. Sign number 4. They're obsessed with appearance over substance. The fourth sign is their relentless focus on appearances while completely neglecting substance. These people are masters of creating an impressive facade while having absolutely nothing of value beneath the surface. In the age of social media, these individuals have found their perfect playground. They're constantly curating their online presence, more concerned with how things look than how things actually are. They're living their lives for the likes, not for actual fulfillment. The Stoics taught us that true worth comes from character, not external appearances. But these people have inverted this wisdom, pouring all their energy into maintaining appearances while letting their character rot from the inside out. Watch how they approach any situation. Their first concern is always, how will this look, rather than, what is the right thing to do? They're more worried about being seen doing the right thing than actually doing it. Their conversations are equally shallow. They'll regurgitate popular opinions without understanding them, quote philosophers they've never read, and share deep posts they don't comprehend. It's all about maintaining the illusion of depth. What's particularly fascinating is how much effort they put into appearing effortless. They'll spend hours crafting the perfect casual post, carefully calculating every move to appear spontaneous and authentic. These are the people who buy books to display them, not to read them. They'll join gyms for the selfies rather than the workout. Everything in their life is props for their personal show of success and sophistication. The real problem isn't just their superficiality. It's how this obsession with appearances prevents them from developing any real substance. They're so busy maintaining their image that they never develop actual skills or wisdom. In professional settings, they're the ones who excel at looking busy without accomplishing anything. They've mastered the art of taking credit for others' work while deflecting blame for their own failures. Their relationships suffer because they're more concerned with how their connection looks to others than the actual quality of the relationship itself. They'll maintain toxic relationships just because they look good on paper. This fixation on appearances makes them particularly vulnerable to manipulation. Anyone who can help them maintain their desired image has power over them, leading them to compromise their values for the sake of keeping up appearances. The saddest part is that deep down, they know it's all fake. But instead of addressing this emptiness, they double down on the facade, creating an ever more elaborate shell to hide the growing void within. Sign number 5. They refuse to adapt or change. The fifth sign is their stubborn refusal to adapt or change, even when their current approach clearly isn't working. These people have elevated resistance to change into an art form. In a world that's constantly evolving, they remain stubbornly stuck in their ways, clinging to outdated methods and mindsets as if their life depends on it. The Stoics understood that nature is change, but these people act as if they're exempt from this universal law. Watch how they handle new technology or ideas. They don't just resist them, they actively pride themselves on their resistance. It's not just that they can't adapt, they've made their inability to adapt a core part of their identity. These are the people who still use the same ineffective methods they learned decades ago, refusing to acknowledge that the world has moved on. They're like prehistoric creatures frozen in amber, preserved but utterly irrelevant. What makes this particularly dangerous is how they try to force the world to adapt to them rather than adapting to the world. They demand that everything and everyone else change to accommodate their refusal to evolve. Their resistance to change isn't just about big things, it extends to every aspect of their lives. They'll keep using the same failed approaches in relationships, career, and personal development, expecting different results each time. The irony is that they often see themselves as paragons of stability and tradition, completely missing the fact that even traditions evolved at some point. They've confused rigidity with reliability. These people are particularly frustrating in professional settings, where they become bottlenecks that hold entire organizations back. They'll resist new processes or technologies simply because this is how we've always done it. Their refusal to adapt often masks a deeper fear. The fear of being wrong, of being vulnerable, of having to admit that their way isn't the only way or even the best way. What's especially tragic is how this resistance to change ultimately isolates them. As the world evolves around them, they become increasingly disconnected from reality, clinging to their outdated perspectives like a drowning person clutches at straws. This inability to adapt doesn't just affect their present, it mortgages their future. Every opportunity for growth and advancement passes them by because they're too rigid to embrace new possibilities. The ultimate price of their inflexibility is irrelevance. While the world moves forward, they remain stuck in place, becoming living museums of outdated thinking and obsolete approaches. Sign number 6. They seek validation over truth. The final sign of a stupid person is their endless pursuit of validation at the expense of truth. These people would rather hear a comforting lie than face an uncomfortable truth. They're constantly seeking approval from others, modifying their beliefs and behavior, not based on what's true or right, but on what will get them the most likes, shares, and positive feedback. The Stoics taught us to pursue truth, regardless of how uncomfortable it might make us feel. But these people do exactly the opposite. They'll embrace any comfortable falsehood that gets them the validation they crave. Watch how they handle criticism or contrary opinions. They don't evaluate them based on merit, but rather on how they make them feel. Any truth that challenges their need for validation is immediately rejected. These are the people who surround themselves with yes men and enablers, creating an artificial environment where their every thought and action is praised, regardless of its actual value or wisdom. Their social media presence is particularly revealing. They'll delete comments that challenge them, block people who disagree, and carefully curate their online world to maintain their fragile sense of rightness. What makes this especially dangerous is how it creates a feedback loop of ignorance. Because they prioritize validation over truth, they never receive the honest feedback necessary for growth and improvement. Their decision-making process is completely warped by this need for validation. They don't ask, "Is this true?" or "Is this right?" but rather, "Will this make people like me?" or "Will this get approval?" In professional settings, they're the ones who never speak up about problems, never challenge bad ideas, and never rock the boat. Not because they agree, but because they fear the loss of validation that might come with dissent. They've completely misunderstood the purpose of feedback and criticism. Instead of seeing it as a tool for growth and improvement, they see it as a threat to their carefully constructed world of validation. The real tragedy is that in pursuing validation, they sacrifice any chance at genuine connection or authentic relationships. Everything becomes transactional. What can this person or situation do to validate me? The ultimate irony is that in constantly seeking validation from others, they never develop the ability to validate themselves. They become empty vessels, constantly needing to be filled with others' approval to feel complete. So there you have it. The 6 unmistakable signs of a stupid person, viewed through the lens of Stoic wisdom. But here's the thing, recognizing these signs isn't about judging others. It's about examining ourselves and ensuring we're not falling into these traps. Remember what Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." The real question is, are you brave enough to look for these signs in yourself? Drop a comment below with which sign resonated most with you, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. If you found value in this video, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Join our community of modern Stoics as we work to build better, stronger, and wiser versions of ourselves. And remember, the journey to wisdom starts with recognizing our own foolishness. See you in the next video.